Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. Another night of doing from home. So
Yeah,
here we
good to
are,
be
Carol and Carol and I tonight. How are you doing tonight, Carol?
good. Yeah, one more week of lockdown, but we're all safe and sound, and I'm happy to be here. So we'll be grateful for what we can. How are you doing, Alcione?
Nice. Yeah, really good as well. It's good that most of us can still work from home and can still do lots of things such as go for walks. So today was a really beautiful day in Auckland City and a good opportunity to get some fresh air and have a look at the blue sky and just enjoy life in general. Yeah, so let's get ready for another Allan Kardec Spiritist Group of New Zealand public meeting. Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight, whether you are watching on Facebook or Instagram. Instagram is still, you can't see our faces really well when it's live, but after Money will transfer all the information and you can see us fully. At the moment, it's just half half. If you are on Instagram, you welcome to come to Facebook and watch us as well. So, in terms of news, next week we have a lecture. So, it's going to be a lecture in English about indulgence according to Spiritism, and Mani is going to deliver the lecture. So, if you have friends that would you like to come, and sometimes we have friends that don't speak Portuguese, right? And everybody's welcome to watch live or after as well. So in terms of news, not much news, business as usual. We're still doing our studies on Monday, the ASG, Systematic Study of Spiritist Doctrine. As you guys know, we can't do yet the studies for kids, but the Wednesday meetings, they just are happening as usual online until we are back in person. Any other news, Carol, that you remember?
No, I think that's it. So the Monday Asia and the mediumship meetings are and studies are still going on. But and like Mani said last week, just remember that if you are home and the fraternal assistance is still going on online, so if you need to talk to someone or just need to have a chat, one of us will reply if you send a message on Facebook or send us an email. Or even on Instagram, we should get back to you. So if anyone is in need of a talk or some assistance, we can still do that online. So we can chat on the chat itself, or we can give you a call. So feel free to contact us.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Carol. That's really good. So let's then start with our initial reading. I'll see if I can put a little bit bigger. Um, Oops, too much. Cool. So would you like to read for us, Carol, please?
Let me see if I can put my full screen. Otherwise, oh yeah, there we go.
Yes,
Um,
sorry. I don't have it.
No, it's all right. It's a good size. Just because I had on the small screen, so now that I put the normal one, it's actually pretty big. It's all good.
Cool.
With Jesus, renunciation will be a privilege for you. Suffering will glorify your life. Tests will expand your powers. Work will be as a mark of confidence along your pathway. Sacrifice will sublimate your impulses. Bodily illness will be a beneficial remedy for your soul. Slander will honor your task. Persecution will be a motive for you to bless many. Anguish will purify your hopes. Evil will summon your spirit to the practice of goodness. Hate will challenge your heart to manifestations of love. The earth, with all its contracts and unceasing renewals, represents a blessed school of individual perfection in whose purifying lessons you will leave selfishness crushed forever.
Cool. Thank you, Carol, for the reading. So now we can get ready for our initial prayer. I'm just gonna put. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit. I'm not so used to the stop screen. Okay, I just want to get another picture to put there, so we can do our initial prayer.
But you're doing a great job, Osman. It's the
Oh,
second time
thank
you're
you.
doing it, so yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're not going to play music because that interferes, and sometimes Facebook will cut our voice as well as the music. But we already read some nice inspirational reading, so we can already be in the positive vibration for the meeting tonight. Dear God, our Creator, our Father, Jesus, our Master, our friend, spiritual guides that help us, that are always with us, we want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight, the opportunity to stop with our busy life and dedicate some time to study and learn more about spirituality, about ourselves, about how we can improve ourselves. Please help us to be present, to make the most of it. And when we finish, that we can be more motivated to do our best and to help others. So, would you like to ask permission to start another Allan Kardec Spiritist meeting of New Zealand? Thank you. So be it.
So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So now, okay, so you guys, Carol, do you want to talk about what we studied last week?
Um, yeah,
If you remember what
funny.
we
I
studied.
was always before we do the study, we try to read a little bit so we know what we're going to talk about it, right? And then I always give a look on what we talk about the previous weeks to try and just do a recap. And I was so we in this chapter for a little bit now, probably a good 3 weeks that we've been reading um, chapter 16. Oh yeah, there we go, 16. So you cannot
Uh-huh.
serve both God and mammon. So last week we were talking about the division of riches, like how the last couple of weeks I would say that it was Mani and I. We talked pretty much about around the same thing inside this chapter. That is why some people are born rich and some people are born poor, and how can this be fair? And we talked a lot on how you can't analyze just this life. Obviously, God's justice is across the infinity of our existence. So if you are poor today, in the next life, and at some point in one of your lives, you will get to be rich, and or if you reach, so the other way around, it will also happen. So everybody has a
Mm-hmm.
chance to develop different parts of their evolution path. So they will develop different
Yes.
sides of their intelligence, being emotional intelligence or your moral side, your intellectual side. A lot of money, very little money, or different situations. We will always develop different things in our lives, so everybody will have a chance, and that we shouldn't feel jealous towards people that have more than us, um, or feel like God is unfair because it's a very short-sighted view. And we also talked about um, how so in the last meeting we had the explanation from the spirits, so different spirits talking about the same point with their points of view. And one interesting thing was talking about how unimportant it is to accrue material things when this life is such a short chapter in our whole story. One of the spirits was talking how silly it sounds when you are in the spiritual plane, looking at you, working and putting all your efforts in this life in accruing richness, accruing material things. And then when you leave, everything stays behind. And we always have an excuse saying that it's for our family, that we want to leave something behind, but it's really because of pride and selfishness. We just want an excuse to keep focusing on that, which is way easier than actually putting the effort in being better people.
Cool. Well, thank you, Carol. That was a very good summary. I wasn't here in the recording, but I was watching from home, so
Was
it
in the
was really good.
comments.
Yeah, and putting a few comments as well. So, yeah, today we keep studying about wealth and our relationship with wealth, which is more important for us because, as we already learned, the wealth is not the problem, it's how we apply or how we use it. So, and today is going to be really interesting because the topic is detachment from earthly possession, because we are very attached to the material things as we saw previously, and today we're going to see a little bit more. So I will start reading and then I pass it on to Carol as well. Can you see well, Carol? Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
size?
It's a good size.
Okay.
Maybe if people are watching from the
Should-
cell phone, not so much, but it should be able to hear, so it's okay.
Okay, thank you. So, detachment from earthly possessions. Brothers and sisters, my friends, I have come to bring my small contribution in order to help you advance fearless, fearlessly on the path of improvement onto which you have entered. We are indebted to one another. It is only through sincere and fraternal unity between spirits incarnates that regeneration is possible. And by the way, this topic is really long, so we're gonna read some and then stop and then keep reading because it's really, you guys gonna see it's a few pages. Your love for earthly possessions is one of the biggest obstacles to your moral and spiritual advancement. Through this attachment to possessions, you shatter your affective faculties, carrying them over to material things. Be honest with yourself. Does wealth provide an unmixed happiness? Even when your coffers are full, is there not an emptiness in your heart? At the bottom of the basket of flowers, is there not always a hidden serpent? I understand justifiable satisfaction not felt by a person who, through diligent and honorable labor, has gained a fortune. However, from this satisfaction, very natural and approved by God, to an attachment that observes all other sentiments and paralyzes the impulse of the heart, there is a great distance. The same great distance that separates sordid miserlines, miserlines and exaggerate wastefulness, two vices between which God has placed charity, that holy and sound virtue that teaches the rich to give without ostentation, so that the poor may receive without feeling debased. So maybe we just stop a little bit for comments and then keep going. What really got my attention was so a few things. In the beginning, he says that what's gonna really help us is the sincere and fraternal unity between spirits incar- and incarnates that regeneration is possible. So pretty much for us to evolve, for the planet to evolve, and for us to get better, we need everybody. We need to unite. And a sincere and fraternal u- unification, we can put it that way. So nobody really can grow or can evolve or can learn just by themselves. We need each other to learn. We can learn from each other. And that part here, I think, really uh, can can show how we are, most of us, how humanity is at the moment, because it says your love for earthly possession. So love is a really big word, isn't it? So, but many times, yeah, we are in love with the material things. We really place much attention, we place lots of energy on it. And because we focus so much on the material attentions, then that becomes one of the biggest obstacles for our moral and spiritual advancement. So if we spend our time trying to get more material things, generate more, and our focus is mainly on the material things, we don't have time for our spiritual advancement, for our moral one. We don't invest on that. We invest a lot. Even the we can even invest money, right? That is the shares and the stock. I don't even know the names of those things because I don't have enough to invest on those, but it's very common for the investment of the brokers. It's not brokers, I forgot the name, but there is a market
Yeah,
that people do.
brokers, yeah.
Is it? Okay. Yeah.
Brokers, yeah.
So of course we are here, and we told probably many times we are in the material place. We need money. It's not that we're gonna give up everything we have and be in need to live on benefits or be a burden for the society. We should provide for ourselves and help others as well. But the focus, the problem is the attachment, is how much time, energy, and focus, how much we think about the material things. So we need to find a balance. Oh yeah, money is helping us. If it stock exchange for our soul is charity.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, so we can invest on that as well. If we invest on the charity, then we are work on the our spiritual life, our spiritual side of things. So, yeah, and does mention so law the money or wealth is not always going, it's not going to bring complete happiness. So we see many times people that have lots of money, but they're not happy. There are things that they feel empty in other parts of their lives, or you can't fill up, wealth is not going to fill up all our needs, because it's not only material needs, we have spiritual needs as well. Do you want to make any comments, Carol?
Yeah, I like this part a lot that it says how he uses the a few a few allegories to talk about that this emptiness. That's the one that
Mhm.
says like, oh, it's is there a serpent under the flower basket? So it looks really pretty
Mhm.
from outside. When you're sitting far
Yeah.
away, you stare at the basket and you look like, oh, so rich and colorful and beautiful. That's what I want for my life. But what you don't see is that there is a serpent under. So um, the things that we don't see that and that we talked about it last week also a little bit about that, like how um, we shouldn't envy because we don't actually know other people's lives. So we live in a society where we only see people, people display their happiness a lot or suppose happiness a lot. So in social media, you never have the complete picture of anyone's life. So if you don't know the person truly, if you don't live with them or if you don't spend time with them, you're only gonna see the surface of it. So it might look like this rich, famous people, they are all happy, but then we have so many cases of suicide or so many cases of drug, alcohol abuse because it's not fulfilling. The money is not
Yeah.
enough to keep anyone happy, fulfilled. And in the chapter, in this part of the chapter, he uses the word, it doesn't feel the emptiness that you have in your soul, right? So we know that we need more from life than material things. And like I said before, a lot of the time, the material race, the race for money, takes over our lives, and we get tunnel vision on that. We only think about it. Oh, I'm gonna change jobs. I'm gonna work some more. I'm gonna do this because I need to pay this mortgage before retirement age. But what if you don't get to retirement age? What if you only get to 40 years old? What is going to happen to all that money if you only worked and you didn't? And I'm not even talking about how you didn't enjoy, but what if you didn't work into anything else? If you don't build your relationships with people, if you don't spend time with your family, with your friends, what are they going to remember you by when you disincarnate? You know, what is going to be when you arrive into the spiritual plane? You know, in Portuguese we say coffin doesn't have drawers, right? So caixão não tem gaveta. You can't
Yeah.
take the money with you. So what is, even if the coffin, some people get buried with heaps of stuff, but you still are not going to take those. So all your clothes, your pockets, they're all going to stay behind. Um, so what are you going to talk about when you get to the spiritual plane and someone asks you, so what did you do with this incarnation? How embarrassing it's going to be you saying, oh, I was a billionaire. And what else? You know? So it's this sense of nothing here is permanent. So we need to work on the only thing that is permanent, which is our spirit, our personality, our intelligence. This is the only thing we are taking with us. So this is the only thing we should be working on. The rest of it should all be consequences and just the basics to make sure our body and our lives are stable enough so we can keep evolving, right?
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Carol. Really good comments. So we'll keep reading this long number 14. Whether your fortune has come from your family or whether you have earned it from your labor, there is one thing that you must never forget. Everything comes from God and returns to God. Nothing on earth belongs to you, not even your poor body. Death will strip you of it, just as it will all other material possessions. You are trustees, not proprietors. Do not delude yourselves. God has loaned them to you and will have to return them. And God loans them on the condition that the surplus, at least, should go to those who lack what is necessary. One of your friends lends you a certain sum. However dishonest you might be, you will the words, scrupulously pay off the loan, and you will be grateful to him. Well then, that is the position of all who are wealthy. Wealth. God is the heavenly friend who has loaned them their riches. He asks nothing for himself accepts love and acknowledgement, but he demands that the wealth, in turn, give to the poor, who, like the rich, are just as much his children. Do you want to make a comment, Carol?
Sometimes I
Or
make a
not?
note here and there so I don't forget when we go and make a comment. But no, I think it's pretty much, I jumped the gun on the previous one and I talk a little bit about we talk now. So
Okay. Yeah, pretty much just said that, as you said, nothing is ours. It's just landed to us while we are here. So even our body, we say our body, but we're using now. And one day it will stay here and we keep going with all the values and all our virtues and our vices as well,
yeah.
everything that we had. So was exactly what we were commenting before. But God expects from the wealth, which doesn't matter. We all have wealth at some degree, for us to share, not to keep everything for ourselves. So, do you want to read a little bit, Carol?
Yeah, I can read.
Cool. Oh, sorry. Cool.
Yeah, it's just tricky sometimes with the size.
Yeah.
The possessions that God entrusted to you arouse ardent and frantic greed in your hearts. Have you never thought about the fact that when you are immoderately attached to riches, as perishable and transitory as yourselves are, the day will come when you will have to give an accounting to the Lord for what has come from Him? Have you forgotten that through wealth you have been invested with the sacred character of ministers of charity on earth in order to be its intelligent distributors? What are you then but unfaithful trustees when you use solely for your own benefit what has been entrusted to you? What will result from your intentional neglect of your duties? Death, unyielding and unforgiving, will tear away the veil under which you hide, and will force you to give an accounting to the friend who helped you out, and who at that moment stands before you in the robe of a judge. It is in vain that you try to delude yourselves while on earth, coloring with the name virtue what is often nothing more than selfishness. That you call saving and foresight what is only cupidity and greed, or generosity what is nothing but prodigality on your own behalf. For example, the father of a family abstains from practicing charity. He saves and piles up the gold, declaring that he is doing so in order to leave as much as possible to his children, so they will not fall into poverty. This is very just and fatherly, I agree, and one cannot blame him. But is that always the sole motive that guides him? It is not often just a compromise with his conscience in order to justify, in his own eyes and the words, his personal attachment to earthly possessions. Even so, admitting that his fatherly love is his sole motive, is that any reason for him to forget his brothers and sisters before God? When he already has a surplus, will he leave his children in poverty because they will have a little less of it? Instead, it is not really giving them a lesson in selfishness and hardening their hearts. Instead, isn't it not is it not stifling in them the love for their neighbor? Fathers and mothers, you are greatly mistaken if you believe that by such means you will increase your children's love for you. By teaching them to be selfish towards others, you teach them to be selfish towards you also.
Shall we stop again for some comments?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, that's a good harsh remembrance that when we have the mission of educating children in this planet, that we have the mission of incurring them with values and morals. So this last part is really interesting about obviously, if you teach your children to be selfish, so not doing charity because you want to save more and leave them with more, they will grow up thinking they are entitled of that and not helping
Mm.
other people. Why would they not be selfish towards you also? So if you teach your children how to care about other people, their giving nature will also be giving towards you, and the love and forgiveness, because we all need forgiveness at some point, especially when you're parenting. There's lots of mistakes that for us that are not parents, we just have to think about our parents, how much
Mhm.
we think they did wrong or right. Most of the time, now that we're older, doesn't really matter. Like we learn, we grow up, and we just, especially when we live far away, lots is forgiven. We don't see them often as we would like. Um, but is it because we grow up in a perfect house with perfect parents, or is it because we grow up and what they taught us and the way life taught us also? Taught us that lots of what happened doesn't really matter today. So if um, you have to teach your children by example. So if you are selfish and you behave selfishly, they will behave that way too, and they will learn from you. Mostly, obviously, there are exceptions, but mostly they will grow up like that, thinking it's not worth it, and they won't share their richness with other people also. Um, and also interesting the part that says again, like I said before, that is really a way of hiding your pride and your love for the richness. If you say in order to calm your conscience and to not be judged by other people, you say that is for your family, that is for your children, but
Mhm.
being when being truthful, you just don't want to share with people that you don't know. So if you was someone that you actually knew there was a need, would you help? Aren't we all brothers and sisters? Shouldn't we all be helping each other? Charity, the real charity is sharing, not what is surplus. And in this little bit says like, oh, when he already has a surplus, will he leave his children in poverty because they will have a little less of it? So in this case, even worse, because it will just be a little less. It's not like you're leaving um, your family without anything. So the
Mhm.
surplus is an obligation. When you share more than you can, when you share something that actually will cost you something, that's when it comes actually from the heart, right? You have no interest in there. When you donate clothes that we don't want anymore, how much of a charity is actually that? You're doing that because you want to get rid of the clothes or because you want to help someone? So it's a really fine line there.
Cool. Thank you, Carol. And just adding a bit to what Carol just said about the parents, there are many things that the parents can leave for the kids, for the kids. For example, the example, it's a big one that Carol also mentioned, and really teaching them like the tools for life. So one thing that I remember clearly when we were kids, my father, he used to read a lot and buy us book and all, even books for kids and then books for adults, and then we start copying him. We like reading nowadays, so it's the example, right? It's something that he could leave for us, and all parents can do that through whether is the love for music, for arts, and so many other things that and teach kids to um, fight for the things that they want or do their way and get there. So education, I think, is a big one, like motivating them to study and to learn, not really study, but to learn things in life. And really, kids will learn by example. So instead of leaving wealth, a good example in things the tools and doing things that can make people's life better in the future, and that of course includes charity. So if parents with wealth start doing charity, so kids will also see admire that and do in the future when they adults as well. So many important points for us to reflect and to think about, eh?
True.
Cool. So we can probably continue our reading now. Let's see here. Um, I'll read a little bit and then give a break for Carol for her voice. Hey. Those who worked hard and accumulate wealth by the sweat of their brow are commonly heard to say that when money is earned, one grasps its value more fully. Nothing can be truer. Well, then, may those who profess to fully grasp the value of money practice charity according to their means, and they will have greater merits than those who, born in abundance, know nothing about the hard fatigue of labor. But, on the other hand, if these same persons who remember their suffering and efforts are selfish and hard towards the poor, they are much guiltier than the others. For the more one knows from personal experience the hidden grave of poverty, the one the more one should be inclined to relieve it in others. Unfortunately, there is always in those who are wealth a sentiment as strong as their attachment to riches, the sentiment of pride. When the poor implore their assistance, it is not rare to see the newly rich wooing them with tales of their efforts and know how, instead of coming to their aid, and then finishing by saying to them, "Do what I have done." According to them, God's goodness has nothing to do with their wealth. All the merit falls solely to them. Their pride casts a veil over their eyes and shuts their ears. In spite to all their intelligence and skill, they do not understand that God can undo them in a single word. Is squandering one's wealth does not show a detachment from earthly possessions, but rather carelessness and indifference. As trustee of such possessions, humans have neither the right of squander them nor to confiscate them for their own profits. Prodigality is not generosity, but is often a form of selfishness. Those who scatter their gold by the handfuls in order to satisfy a fantasy will not give 1 cent to lend a helping hand. Detachment from earthly possessions consists in appreciating wealth for its true worth, in knowing how to use it for others and not only for oneself, in not sacrificing one's interest in the future life on its behalf, and in losing it without complaining if it please God to take it away. If due to unforeseen misfortune you become another jaw, say as he did, Lord, you have given and you have taken away. May your will be done. This is the true detachment. First, be submissive. Have faith in the one who, having given and taken it away, can restore it to you once again. Courageously resist the discouragement and desperation that paralyze your strength. Never forget that whenever God causes you to suffer a blow, he always places consolation alongside the hardest trial. But remember, all above, that there are possessions infinitely more valuable than earthly ones, and this though will help you detach from the latter. The less value one attributes to a thing, the less sensitive one becomes to its loss. People who become attached to earthly possessions are like children who cannot see but the present moment. Those who do not become attached are like adults who see the things that are most important by understand these prophetic words of the Savior. My kingdom is not of this world. Okay, probably we just stop for some comments. There's lots going on in here. Yeah, it's tricky for everybody, the detachment. So they talking about the ones that didn't have any wealth, and then when they have, they forget how hard it was. So they forget to share with others, and they just try to um, enjoy the benefits of it. And for the ones that always had wealth, or the ones that acquire wealth, can really intensify or maximize the feeling of selfishness that we all have, and selfishness, not wanting to share, and pride, because we do feel we have the sentiment of pride, all of us in different levels, different situations. But by having more, by being seen and perceived in a superior position because of the status, or because of a house, or because of the bank accounts, then the wealth has this power of intensify, but the power is on us to not let this intensify. And the power can be diminished if we practice charity. So if we start practicing charity, then the pride and the selfishness is gonna go away. But it's a challenge for all of us. I think even last week you guys were talking, regardless if you have lots of wealth, because we may think, oh, I'm not really rich, so that's okay, I don't need to worry about. But we all need, because most of us, fortunately, we many times we have more than we need, so we do have the opportunity to share. And even if it's not a lot, and not only wealth, but we know all other types of charity. So I think it's interesting showing that doesn't matter if you acquire the wealth by working hard, or if it was a gift or a present, is a challenge for everyone. So we all, and whether we have lots or a little, we still need to deal with the selfishness, with the pride, and always go towards doing the charity and sharing um, the wealth that we have. Any comments, Carol?
Yeah, I think it's quite nice also in the beginning of this part that says like on and if actually acquiring richness is way better for one's character, why would you then make sure to pass it on to the next generation instead of letting them acquire these moral gains that come with the earning of the richness? Why would you just give them with all the wealth when they will grow inside luxury and not knowing the value of work, or and it talks about the brow sweat, so not knowing the value of the brow sweat, or working towards anything actually. So working towards earthly possessions is a way to take us out of our comfort zone. Like how many of us say, oh, if I win lottery, I'll quit tomorrow, you know? So would you just stop working and just be at your leisure for the rest of your life because you earn a lot of money? So how good is God that we don't win the lottery and we have to carry on working and going outside and meeting people and helping people and doing all this not routine, but keep living our lives, being honest people, and actually putting the work on there, and getting things with our merit instead of just hand me down. So it's actually really charitable of him to let us evolve in different ways. And Alcione was also talking about that part that talks about how if you know how it is to be poor, why wouldn't you help poor people? Because you've been there. So it's even more selfish of you that knows exactly, not even in a past life, in this life, you know exactly what the person's going through, and you still won't help them. Because why would you deserve more than others? Why would we deserve more than others? Why would you not help someone when you know exactly the pain that they're going through? Is an extra reason for you to help. But regardless, we should all be helping And the biggest challenge is to be charitable with our time, because all of us think our time is really important. So when you have a lot of money, giving money here and there, it's not important to you because you still have a lot of it. And if you have very little and you share, that's really charitable of you because you're sharing with other people that have less, even less than you. But time, it's certainly something that all of us feel like we have very little. So when you are donating your time, that's really big. I think about it. I think about that constantly with sometimes doing those meetings and doing everything that we do for the Spirit Center. I think about it like, you know what? It's like 4 hours, 5 hours of my week meeting those guys twice a week or 3 times a week. And how many hours has a whole week, So it's so little of the time, and it makes such a difference, especially for ourselves. I hope it does for people that watch it and that participate also. That's why we do it too. But we know that the biggest, probably the people that need the most is us who are here doing it, who are entrusted with this task. So it's so little of your time helping other people or doing something for someone else. And we still say we don't have time. So it's something to think about.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Carol. Do you want to read a little bit for us, please?
Yeah.
I think we can. It's only like 3 slides. We could go until the end of this number 14. I think we can do it.
Cool. The Lord orders none to get rid of what they possess and be reduced to voluntary beggary, because then they would become a burden on society. Proceeding in such a manner would be to misunderstand detachment from earthly possessions. It would be selfishness of another type, because it would imply expending oneself from the responsibility that wealth weighs on those who possess it. God grants wealth to those who seem capable of administering it for the benefit of all. Thus, the rich have a mission which they can render beautiful and adventurous for themselves. To reject wealth when God has given it to you is to renounce the benefits of the good you can do by administering it wisely. To know how to do without it when one does not have it. To know how to put it to good use when one does. And to know how to sacrifice it when necessary is to act in accordance with the Lord's designs. May those who receive what one calls in the word a good fortune say to them, "My God, you have sent me a new responsibility. Give me the strength to carry it out accordingly to your holy will." My friends, this is what I wanted to teach you regarding detachment from earthly possessions. I will summarize it by saying, know how to be content with little. If you are poor, do not envy the rich, because wealth it's not necessary for happiness. If you are rich, do not forget that your possessions have been entrusted to you, and that you must justify their use as if you were giving an accounting of expenditures. Do not be an unfaithful trustee by utilizing your possessions to satisfy your pride and sensuality. Do not think that you have the right to dispose for your sole use what is nothing but a loan and not a gift. If you are unable to repay it, you do not have the right to ask for it in the first place. And remember that those who give the poor are settling a debt they have contracted with God. Lacordaire, Constantine, 1863.
Oh, thank you, Carol. So
yes, just a little more we were talking about if you are poor, don't envy the rich. You don't need richness to be happy, so work with what you got, and always remember that we need very little to be happy. We need very little to go through this life. Interesting also the part that he remembers that giving it away, everything you have, it's not really charitable. Who are you helping there? What are you trying to prove? Is it a matter of also pride? Are you giving everything away and leaving out of nothing, or leaving of other people's will? to prove that you are a humble person. If you have to prove something, if you have to say you're not really humble, and that's actually not right. So the best way of using your richness would be for the good, making sure you administrate well and that you share and do as much good as you can. We talked about it a lot of meetings ago because we were still meeting in person when someone said that. But they were talking about Bill Gates and all this, his charitable work and how much he did on the course of the years. Of course, he could do more because he has a lot of money. But he is also doing quite a lot. Like now for COVID, he started researching the vaccine before anyone and things like that. So it's way more important people that have that have quite a bit that they administrate and try and help people than actually giving it away and just being poor like everybody else. What is that what good that will do? That also always makes me think about Chico Xavier saying that a really good person will never be that rich, will never be extremely rich because they will just share. If they are really truly good, they will just share everything they have and live with the necessary always. So you can still carry on working and doing what you do to keep earning their richness and keep sharing with people. But do you really need everything? We see people have those days. I always think about it like, oh my God, what would you do with a house with like 16 bathrooms? Honestly, does anyone need that to live? When I see those celebrity houses, and it's a guilty pleasure. I love watching the stuff like pictures and looking, but that's always comes on my mind. Like, what would you
Yeah.
do with a house with 16 bathrooms when the person lives alone or on the person, and even if it is a family of 10 people, and the employees that live in the house because you need to pay someone to clean all of that, what will
Yeah.
you do? So I think at some point the person doesn't have a notion anymore on what you spend the money, what you do. And I think that's when is a waste of the richness. If you lose the awareness of how much money is worth, how many people could you help, how much could you do with that amount of money that you are spending with things that you definitely don't need.
Yeah. Yeah, very true, Carol. And I think I comment a little bit before that regardless of our situation regarding wealth, we all have a responsibility and we all need to learn how to deal with that. So the sooner we learn, the more we're going to be dealing better with our selfishness and our pride as well. And it's a big challenge, but at least being aware is the first step, isn't it? It's 6 to 8. So number 15 is really small as far as I can see here, and is
Is
about
the
the
end of the
transmission.
chapter?
I'm not so sure. I was trying to look it up here on the because I don't
Hmm.
have the gospel here in front of me. But
I
as
think you
far
might
as
have
I
it
can
here, but
see,
should be right. We
I'll
can
just
read next week also if we want to do the other book. I have it here
okay.
under my desk somewhere.
Oh, okay. We'll just have a quick look.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah, but it's definitely something that we need to be. Oh, yeah, that's
Chapter.
the end. Yep, I think it's the end of the chapter. Mm-hmm.
I got it.
So we hope that
16.
we can. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Yeah, it
Oh,
seems
yeah,
that is the end.
yeah. Maybe we read because it's the last bit of the
Yeah,
chapter. You're right.
yeah, it's
So
only
we
two
finish
pages.
this one. Mm.
Would you like to read, Carol, please?
Yeah. The transmission of
Okay.
wealth. Thus, the
Mm-hmm.
principle according to which humans are only trustees of the wealth that God has allowed them to enjoy during their lives, take away the right to transfer it to their descendants. After their death, people can rightly transfer what they have enjoyed during their lives because the effect of such rights is always dependent on the will of God, who can prevent their descendants from enjoying it whenever he wants. That is why we see apparently solidly established fortunes crumble. The will of persons to keep their wealth in the hands of their descendants is therefore powerless. Although this fact does not take away their rights to transfer the loan they have received, since God will take it from their descendants if he deems it appropriate. St. Louis, Paris, 1860. So just adding to what we said, that if you get if you can pass it on to your children or to your family. If you keep accumulating wealth on earth, you can pass it on to them. But as I said on the previous part, on 14, it says like, oh, what God gives, God can also take away. So if they are not supposed to have all the wealth, they will just lose it at some point. And obviously we should keep it in mind what we talked about it before, that is sharing with other people will make them just a little less rich. Shouldn't that be the case, that you share more instead of leaving everything behind? And to make sure that we are teaching the next generation how to use their money, that you're just not passing the richness to them, but you're also teaching them to share, to use it for good. And also, if you don't teach them how to do things and to administrate, they will also lose it. So it's up to you probably to teach them, to educate them before you just leave the money behind.
Yeah, actually, it happens a lot. We hear lots of stories of parents that left huge wealth, and then after they pass away, that's all gone altogether. Yeah, so the administration of it and how to use well, that's way more important. Yeah, Mani just put a comment for the next week will be in terms of Gospel chapter 17, be perfect. So after we learn about charity, then we're gonna learn about be perfect. So really cool. Well done. Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. Well done, Carol. We finished the chapter. Yay.
Yeah. So this was
Perfect.
probably while you find, I'll just tell them that if you haven't been, so Oceania is going to swap us now to the Spiritist book, so we can read a little bit of that before we finish for the day. And so the chapter that we finish on the gospel, it's probably what we talk about it the most during lockdown. And I think it's quite a nice thing to talk about it, things that actually matter while we are at home. And we
Yes.
can't go many places and actually spend a lot of money. So it's really really nice thought, you know. And I feel like lockdown is a bit of that too. Reminds us of what actually makes you happy, and the things you miss are not so much richness related, but richness of the soul, right? You miss seeing people, you miss being outside, you miss your freedom to be into other places, you miss, I think, especially meeting people and hugging people, and
Yeah.
being able to visit your family, like some in another country, or just having them coming over and just seeing your friends that you see every week. How long we haven't seen each other? It's
Yeah,
more than
that's
2 months
right.
now. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Carol. And just a correction, guys. Next week we're not studying Be Perfect. Will be a lecture next week.
Oh,
So
yeah, the
we'll
following.
continue with the gospel. Yeah, it's about indulgence according to Spiritism. But yeah, the week after, then we continue the gospel. The
So
gospel
the first
according to
week
Spirit.
of November.
Yes. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So for Spirit's book, then we are on chapter 7. Just gonna the return to corporeal life. So we actually went through, I believe, most of the chapter, preludes of to the return, the joining of the soul with the body, abortion, the moral intellectual faculties, the influence of the organism. So at the moment we are on mental impairment, um, insanity. So that's the part that we are at the moment. So many very interesting questions. And I'll see if I can go to the next one. So specifically, we are in question number 374. Um, would you like to start, Carol, please?
Yes. Is the spirit state in the spirit state are the mentally impaired conscious of their mental state? Yes, quite often. They understand that the chains hindering their development are a trial and an expiation.
What is the situation of the spirit in the state of insanity? When freed from the body, the spirit receives impressions directly and directly exerts its action upon matter. Once incarnated, however, it finds itself in completely different conditions and in need of acting with the help of special organs. If one part or a group of these organs is altered, the spirit's actions are interrupted. Defective eyes cause blindness, defective ears cause deafness, etc. Now, imagine the organ presiding over the manifestation of intelligence, and will it's partially or entirely damaged or modified, and you will easily understand that the use of such is incomplete or distorts organ will result in an affliction that the spirit is fully aware of, but whose course it is powerless to deter. Then it is always the body and not the spirit that is dysfunctional. Yes, but you might not lose sight of the fact that just as a spirit acts upon the matter, matter reacts upon the spirit to a certain degree. Hence, a spirit may find itself momentarily controlled by the alteration of its organs through which it manifests and receives various impressions. It may happen that with time and after the insanity has lasted quite a while, the repetition of the same acts end up exerting on the spirit an influence from which it will not be freed until it completes separation from every material effect. Well, that was quite a long one. So if we just talk a little bit. So as far as I understood, and I'm not an expert on it, it's a little bit tricky. So the spirit still has all the faculties. It's the body that, in that case of insanity, so the brain, the cognitive function is not perfect, is not normal. As the word normal is a bit weird to be used, but it's not standard. It's not like most people will have. But the spirit then will have is aware. So the spirit does would not have these difficulties or these impacts. But of course, the body affects. So first of all, the spirit acts on the body, and then the body will have an effect on the spirit. Is vice versa. So this with time, with repetition, maybe the spirit will not be so aware, fully aware while incarnated. And yeah, it's did you understand like that, Carol?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So we talked about different when we were talking more about mental impairment. On the other questions was seems to be pretty much the standard answer from the spirit that the body is the instrument and the spirit is limited to what the instrument can do, right? So you cannot
Mhm.
play a beautiful song in a guitar that doesn't have a string. So you need
Right.
the body, the brain. When the brain has some sort of malfunction, the spirit cannot work its in its full capacity, in its full potential, because the instrument that it has to play with, it's not fully functional. So
Mhm.
also the part, maybe also, sorry, could you go back one,
Yes,
please?
of course. This one?
Um, yeah, this one. So, and it talks a bit about her. When freed from the body, the spirit receives impressions directly and directly exerts its action upon the matter. Once incarnated, however, it finds itself completely different conditions and in need of acting with the help of the organs. So, obviously, when the spirit is incarnate, that doesn't need the physical body anymore. It goes back to using all the functions on functioning fully because it's free of the material connection, that is the body, free of the this and a few parts of the spirit's book, they talk about like the spirit is in a cage, right? So we depend on the body is actually making our spirit work in a very limited condition. So when we disincarnate, that we don't need our eyes to see anymore, we don't need our ears to hear anymore, we don't need our thoughts and feelings to be processed by the brain. All works fully. So if you doesn't matter if you had an impairment in this life or not, when you disincarnate, you shouldn't have that difficulty anymore.
Oh, thank you, Carol. Do you want to please read the next one? I'll put it back here. 376.
376. What is the reason for insanity sometimes leading to suicide? The spirit suffers immensely from its constraints and from the powerlessness to freely manifest itself. Thus, it seeks a way to break its ties in death.
After death, does the spirit of a mentally impaired person continue to feel the derangement of its faculties? It may feel it for quite some time until it is completely disconnected from matter, like a person who, upon awakening, continues to feel the confusion which into which sleep has immersed her or him.
Yeah, maybe we comment a little bit about those two because it's going to change the topic a little bit
Oh,
next.
it's just the last
One more.
378 is the last one, and then we'll change. I just was that
How
me
is
or
it
you?
possible? Me. how how is it possible for the impairment of the brain to react upon the spirit after death? It is a remembrance. A weight bears down upon the spirit, and since it was not aware of everything that took place during its insanity, it requires some time to be able to understand its current state. That is why the longer insanity lasts during life, the longer the affliction and the constraint will last after death. Disconnected from the body, the spirit continues to feel the impression of its bonds for some time thereafter. So it's talking about specifically insanity on the last five questions, right, that we read, 4 or 5 that we read. So first it talks about insanity if, again, if the spirit feels that after disincarnate, so we talked a little bit before that it is an impairment from the body, not from the spirit. So even though the spirit might have a while in the spiritual plane after disincarnating that it feels the insanity still present and the limitations from the body are still in the spirit. It's just an impression. So when we leave Earth, we don't lose the feeling. It always reminds me a little bit of that syndrome of the in Portuguese we call like the ghost limb or something like that. That when
Oh,
you lose a
yeah.
hand, you can still feel the hand sometimes, It's just something, imagine being here on Earth for 80, 90 years living with a condition and obviously the spiritist book was written, so it was compiled a long time ago, so we don't really use the word insanity anymore, but living with a mental condition for so long on Earth, and then disincarnating, and after 90 years, or even if it is 50 years, 40 years, it's quite a long time for you to just wake up and be back to your in full use of your spirit. So usually it takes this time. And I like the comparison that says it's like when you wake up and you still feel like you're asleep and a bit sleepy and try to, it was a dream, but you actually keep feeling like when you have a nightmare, you wake up and you still feel scared for quite a while. And it was not real at some point, but the feeling is still there in you. So it's a dream that lasted years and years of our existence. So shaking that off will be a while.
Yeah, definitely. I find interesting the question about suicide as well, because we see lots of not lots, but sometimes cases of people with mental health challenges that they end up committing suicide, and it does say the spirit suffers immensely. So it's a very difficult trial. It's a very difficult challenge, and the goal, or probably the hope, is that the suffering is going to finish with suicide, but as we know, that's not true. Yeah, so I think it's important for us, if we can help, even with our prayers, with our thoughts. So mental health issues of all sorts, it's growing a lot. It's everywhere. With the pandemic, is even higher rates of it. So it's very important for us to, even if it's not insanity or high levels of mental health issues, it's very important to be aware of people around us and help as we can, because yeah, it can be really really hard to, even harder to deal. Like material problems are one thing, but mental health problems are really tricky to deal with.
Yeah.
But yeah, really interesting. So I think we have time to a few more questions. um I always press this one wrong, guys, sorry. Learning, lots of learning, Carol,
Oh
today.
no, you're doing great.
I don't know who read the last one. I think, did you?
I think it's you now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now we're changing topics. So we're going to childhood. Is the spirit who animates the body of a child as developed as the spirit of an adult? Maybe more so if it is more evolved. Only its imperfect organs keep it from fully manifesting itself. It must act according to the instrument that serves it.
380. In a very young child, and despite the obstacle that the imperfection of its organs imposes on its ability to freely manifest itself, does the spirit think as a child or as an adult? While a child, it is natural that the as yet undeveloped organ of intelligence cannot provide it with all the intuition of an adult. Its intelligence its intelligence is therefore quite limited until age matures its reason. The confusion accompanying incarnation does not cease suddenly at birth, but only dissipates gradually with the development of the organs. And observation supports this response. So the first bit is the answer from the spirits, and then this part that I'm going to read now is Kardec's comment, right? And observation supports this response. The dreams of a child do not have the character of the dreams of an adult. Their object is almost always childish, which is an indication of the nature of the spirit's preoccupations.
With the death of the child, does the spirit immediately regain its former vigor? It should, since it has been disencumbered from its physical envelope. Nevertheless, it does not regain its former lucidity until the separation is complete, that is, until there is no connection between the spirit and the body at all.
Does the incarnate spirit suffer from the constraint imposed by the imperfection of its organs during childhood? No, childhood is a necessity. It is natural and corresponds to the designs of providence. It is a time of repose for the spirit.
Okay, maybe one more. What is the usefulness of a spirit have to go through childhood? A spirit incarnates in order to perfect itself. During childhood, it is more accessible to the impressions it receives, and which may assist in its progress. Persons in charge of its education should contribute towards this goal. Okay, maybe we should stop for some comments. What do you think, Carol?
Yeah, I think so. Probably some less comments on
Yeah,
those. And
there are a few. I find interesting because the first impression that we may have is that the spirit of a child might be a not evolved spirit or a young spirit. It could be older than us in terms of spirit age, if we can put it that way. Could be way more evolved than us. So it's really we have no way of really telling if the age of the spirits and how much they are evolved or not. It's just a normal phase for adaptation. In the same way, when we pass away, there is that phase of confusion and of transition. So we could say it's a transition, it's adaptation that is necessary for us when we reincarnate to go through that phase, to have the opportunity of learning, opportunity of getting the experience and the teaching from the parents that we talked about, so the parents can teach us how to deal with wealth and how to be charitable and other things. So yeah, it's really interesting to learn about this phase that we all go through and the importance of it as well. um, I can't remember anything else right now. Do you want to say, do any comments, Carol? I can go back and or forward if you need to.
yeah, because we read quite a few. But
Oh.
while now we were reading, I was thinking about how is a recurrent topic on this chapter about how the instrument will mold the spirit. So will actually do we have evolved spirits on being born as children again? Absolutely. We all have different
Mhm.
levels of evolution, and we are still reincarnating here for a reason. We still need to learn something. But being a child doesn't mean the body is less evolved. It just means the spirit is less evolved. It just means it's in a child's body. So we know there are heaps in infinite amount of studies, and all psychology studies are based on children's lives, right? So on the phase
Mhm.
of building up of the brain. So if you don't educate your children, and if you don't stimulate their brains, if you don't talk to them, if they sit in front of a screen all the time, if you don't have a stimulation from talking, from playing, from games that stimulate their imagination, their brains are not going to develop. And even if they are extremely intelligent and evolved spirits, they are not going to have they're not going to use their full potential in this life. So the parents are responsible for a lot when raising a child, not just the moral side of it and making sure to encouraging them what is right, what is wrong, and teaching them important lessons so they can live life by themselves later on. But also, when they are young, they depend 100% on the adults. If we don't develop their brains, their coordination, their social skills, their brains are not going to develop, and they are not their spirit is not going to be able to use it in full extension. So I was thinking of that when we were reading now, how much we are responsible for when raising children. And
Yeah.
he talks about he goes on talking about sorry, yes, can you go back one more? um
More?
Oh yeah, so that's the one. No, that's the one. So and then he talks about if when if the spirit is incarnate when it's still a child, if it goes back to the same place, and then he talks it to his vigor like he was when he disincarnated as an adult, and the
Oh.
same as we talked before. It just takes a while to get used to the spiritual plan again, but the spirit goes back to all its faculties and etc. So. Um, yeah, so the chapter is gonna go on talking about childhood, so I'm sure we're gonna get more a little deeper into this topic on the first meeting of November. We're gonna go back to it, so we're gonna also remember a little bit of this childhood chapter then.
Cool. Yeah, I think we can stop. So not next week, the week after, we'll keep reading, and it's gonna be question 384. So I just made the notes. And you can see underneath our advertising as well for us, you guys to follow us on Instagram and also YouTube page. So subscribe, please, to our YouTube channel, not page, channel. And you can watch our lectures and studies there as well. But let's close this. So yeah, I think was lots of things that we we learned today. Hey, Carol, and we can reflect
Yeah, lots to think about it until next week when we join again to watch Mani's lecture.
the lecture. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. We're very grateful for the connection and for the good energy, positive thoughts, and to be. It's so good in this day and time. We have the technology that make us give us the possibility to be together, even if everybody in their own place, in their own house, at least in Auckland. Other place might be a little bit different. And yeah, so next week we have our lecture, and then after that, just the our usual study group. So now we're gonna go to our. Oh, do you have any other comments, Carol?
No, that's
To
it.
share?
You summed up well. So we hopefully everybody at home has their water and it's ready for our vibration and our final prayer.
Cool. Yeah. So just gonna put a beautiful picture that Mani gave to us. Let's see if I can find is that cool. And so after all this information, the discussions that we had according to gospel according to spiritism and spiritist literature, let's then unite our thoughts, our feelings, our willingness to help, and together let's vibrate for the peace on earth. Let's visualize our beautiful planet, embrace it with fluids of peace, of love, of understanding. Let's take our best fluids to the nations that are having conflicts and difficulties, to the nations where poverty still predominates. Let's also take our kindness, our generosity to all the hospitals, to people that might be on the streets suffering from illness, if it's physical or mental, that they can receive our consolation, that they can be reminded of the courage that they do have inside them, of their power, of their faith. Let's also vibrate to our brothers and sisters that just passed away and that still not sure of their situation, that they can receive clarity and understanding. Let's vibrate to our brothers and sisters that are in prisons, that are having a time to reflect about themselves. Let's remind them that everyone makes mistakes. We all make mistakes, but we all have new opportunities of doing better next time. And we all, without exceptions, we are sons and daughters of God, and we are loved by God. Let's then remember people closer to us, our family, our family members, our friends, people from our work, from our community, and vibrates to all of them. Lots of love, lots of patience, and especially faith, which is so much needed in this planet, in the circumstances that we are facing at the moment. Faith and courage and hope that everything passes. Everything has a time to happen and a time to finish, and better things will come on our way. We just need to do our parts and keep going and doing our best. So, with our hearts full of gratitude, of love, courage, and faith, we would like to say thank you very much for this opportunity of the meeting, that we can all distribute wherever we go this positivity and apply in our daily lives what we already know. That we can meet again sometime soon. We ask permission from God and Jesus to finish another Allan Kardec meeting. So be it.
So be it.
All righty. So thank you so much, guys. We hope everybody has a great week and see you again next week for the lecture. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. I'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.